The Exchange on Deep Dive.
So joining me in the conversation, Mr. Ruben Akili. How are you this evening? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Rumbi. How are you, Harare? Thank you for this important conversation.
We thank you for your time and your insights. I don't even know if I can continue to be shocked at the way that the 2026 budget is unpacking. It seems there's a lot of proposals to make increases, and I'll perhaps direct attention to a public notice that was issued by the city of Harare outlining some of the taxes and tariffs that will be increased, and that notice, so it's a notice really that was given in terms of the Urban Councils Act to increase these tariffs with effect from 1 January 2026. So there's a raft of them: swimming pool charges, the hire of stadia and halls, market fees, ambulance fees, transport enforcement fees, public health fees, burial fees, cremation fees, water charges that we spoke about earlier in the week, and property tax. Yes. What is, what's the overview? What do you make of this notice of the intention to increase tariffs and taxes?
Thank you so much, Rumbi, for this important question. From a CRA perspective, what we have been looking at, so we looked into the tariff which the city of Harare is proposing, and generally we discovered that business licenses in the past, they in this tariff proposal they've slashed business licenses, and remember the local authority has been relying much on business licensing as a source of revenue. So to that end, you actually see that. Like, for example, let me give an example. The tariff for licenses for nightclubs, it was around the $1,323 US per year. So when you actually look at that, after the slashing or the reduction, remember also government through cabinet, they also directed, in ensuring that some of these business licenses are then reduced. So this local reduced. But maybe probably the reduction is not making sense. I'm saying it's not making sense because when I saw the nightclubs, for an example, they've been slashed from 1,323 as a licensing fee per year to $20 US. Okay? And then that's per year. And then you look at operations. They have been also, licenses have been slashed again. So around 548 to $20. So you realize that the slashing of those license fees, the local authority now is now turning resident. So business is kind of like protected at the moment, but now they are turning to the resident. So the bulk of where they have reduced from those who and probably in the business fraternity, they've turned to residents. Why I'm saying they've turned to the residents, you actually see, like, Rumbi, let's say, for example, a tax shop in Mabuku, there is a proposal to then say a tax shop paying $25 US, there's a proposal for $50 US a month. So meaning, a tax shop in a tax shop, let's say, we can then say 50 times 12 months, which is $600. So a tax is paying more than a beer owner. And remember, a tax shop, that's a tax shop. What they call open air vending. So anamama vedu vanogara mumarokesheni vachitengesa maopen air, ndozvinonzi open air vending iyo inokutengesa handika. So pane proposal yekuti vanhu ava vabhadhare $10 pamwedzi, ndizvoka. Saka tikati $10 times 12,320. You know, the vendor anobhadhara mari yakawanda kusura ichabhadharwa nebhawa. Saka hazvichameka sense, man. Because when you look at these ones, they are business. And when you look at this is livelihood and it's not like subsistence. So, no conclusion. I told you, for people. Because vanhu ndo vakusubsidiza mabusiness operations. Mukacherechedza kugadzirwa kunoitwa budget makore ese, even kubvira kare nekare, pane inonzi cross subsidization. So cross subsidization inoitika ndeyekuti kazhinji industry nebusiness ndo vaita vanosubsidiza kuti tiite inonzi cross subsidization, especially the vulnerable and the probably the marginalized communities. But in this moment, the local authority now is returned to the residents. That's the reason why you see the tariffs for anything which speaks to people. It might be rental, it might be debt. So to die is now expensive. You can not see because they have 150 when I'm 330. And then if you never want to be from Suru, you have to speak about 400. Pakandopa kuti ipapo panenge pari kuti paremata kana padaro nechikonzero chekuti panokonzeresa ndo inonzi unfairness kana padaro zvinoita kuti vanhu vane urombo zvakanyanyisa nechikonzero chekuti ndo vari kusubsidize vari kuita zvemabusiness anga kuti munhu ari kuita business ari kuita one profit making asiyana nemunhu ari kugara pamba ari kuita ari kushandisa tikati ma-services as not for profit making. Saka ndo challenge yataita nebudget resitofarara. Kana izvozvo rumbi mukacherechedza sekutaura kwamaita section 219 ye-Urban Councils Act inozoti kana pane avo vasiri kutenderana kana kuti vari kuona zvinhu izvi zvisina kunyatsoti twasa vakasununguka kuya nenyunyuto dzavo also vachipiwa maproposal. Saka ndo pakaopenwa ipapo atinhu zvakatanga musi wemani kusvika musi wa1. Saka vanhu vakasununguka kuti munonyora zviita zvokunyorwa pasi, manyora pasi kuti ndikuwirirana netarifu yakati nechikonzero chakadai ndandafunga kuti mudai. Tsamba iroro kana kuti gwaro iroro rinonosiwa kuti kutown house koko kana kuti paofisi yekanzuro patown house apo. Pamunosiya ipapo imi mukazhinji tinovazokurudzira vanhu kuti vaende nemagwara ari maviri wodhindirwa rimwe wofanana neiroro. Saka mutemo wacho unozoti pakaita vanhu 30 vaita maobjections, kanzuro inofanira kunge ichitarisa tingati nyunyuto idzodzo. Saka tingati ndopane tingati lifeline kuvagara. Otherwise vanhu vakasaresponda to that muchangoona kuti zvicharamba zvichiomera vanhu. Kunhu kwataona where we have seen where there's been no movement in the health sector. So in the health there hasn't been any increase, which is commendable. But again, you see like other tests, like laboratory tests, we have seen among us. But in terms of it's modest ku health. But in other sectors, which I've mentioned, water, your graveyard fees, your vending fees, it's tax of fees, and even flea market. And also, the flea market, it's expensive, to have a flea market than a beer or a whatever. So those are some of our. So we are saying, in a nutshell, this budget needs to be, revisited so that it can reflect the economic and social context. Wasima kuti vanhu vane mari nezvimambiriro akaita zvimari. Council is setting itself for failure because mukatikata analysis atachita pachipesa mukaona kuti budget rekanzuro rakutengerera last year kutengerera 548 million vakakwanisa kukolekta half yemari iyoyo. Saka vakakwanisa kukolekta half yemari iyoyo ndo mari yavakakwanisa kuwana. Handiti maona mari pane mari yavanenge vakabhila ndo mari yavakakwanisa kuraiza iyoyo. Kana izvozvo kana vakadaro mari zhinji vodzipushira kumarezi uchaona kuti mari iyo hapewa setting themselves for and slash kwematari kunyanya kubusiness kunyange zvakakosha kubusiness zvechokwadi mamwe malicenses acho anga akawandisa mamwe acho anga akakusa but hatingabvi mu1000 rumbi tiri kuenda mu$20 it's ridiculous. Make sense. Akana mwana wechikoro chaitana kunautaura kuti nezvipi zvamuda kuita panapo because it's no longer the budget is now got one man budget the country because you cannot say with a license period line even in any setting. Even I will borrow the words of Honorable Chivanhu, that sub-economic tariff, that's a sub-economic tariff. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any business sense. If you could not have a business, anyway, Burana, borrow or when the meeting is CBD, who on the license, the Mario in $20 per board. You don't want to fund because it doesn't sense.
It's a bit out of so here's where it gets quite bamboozling, I suppose, maybe for the ordinary resident. There were pre-budget consultation meetings via Kili. Were any of the things that the residents said in those consultation meetings taken into the drafting of the final budget and what was presented by Councillor Mendi?
So when we look at this budget, it's divorced. This you cannot see the footprint. Here is around the participate. So participate about consultations. This was reconstituted. So what that is something that pura. This one is pura. My friends are going to get some. Don't get a line and my friends are doing it. And in terms of a cost and how this thing is going to operate, I think we there is kind of like from the expectation of an ordinary resident. Because generally speaking, if they don't increase even brave tariffs like that, and then that as you know, for example, that is no, they did not say that. So the budget are related singati maringe nezvizaita vanhu saka topaita problem ipapo saka mukana uripo ndofunga pamataura paive mukati hatina 30 days pa30 days ipapo hapasisina nhaurirano yanyaya yekuti munhu sedunga munhu ndochimwe chinhu chatinokurudzira rumbi kuti vanhu kana kuita maobjections doona kuti vamwe vanhu vanofarira kuita doona vanhu people from low density they would do a petition inenge ine vanhu kana kuti 1000 it will be counted as one objection. People need to deposit their objections 1-1. So that is the end of the day. If we reach the number set, it is then able to help for the local authorities to really look into that. But we are disappointed over this budget because it's not speaking to what residents also expected.
And I mean, let's look at the current realities that Harare residents are facing. And I'm talking about service delivery challenges. I'm talking about issues of water, refuse collection, and, the poor waste management, the state of our roads. And looking at that, how can residents, see a justification for the proposed tariff increases? And is this fair for Harare residents in your view?
It's worrying. It's not fair at all. It's not. Because when you look at, I think when I was at your station last time, we talked of the graveyard, for an example. If you go to the graveyard, if you want, even starting from January until around April, they are more of like forest. There is not even a maintenance of graveyards. Remember, these graveyards are under park. In other countries, you can go to this place, it's a park, and someone can sit. But the people will be running away from snakes, and the grass is not, there are no toilets in graveyards, in those graveyards. But they also want to increase that is so hard, So there's no justification, You want to increase water tariff from $1.70 to $2 to $4.90 when there's no water at all. There's no justification that the tariff, I've always said, and I'll repeat this, there's no justification that a tariff increase can improve services. From a state of Harare, from our analysis which we have been doing, over the past 3 years, the local authorities have been increasing year in, year out, water tariffs. But all the past 3 years, even the water production has been decreasing. So there are some other issues which need the local authority to look at. And when you look at the Auditor General, I said this last time, he or he has raised the fundamental issues to say the local authority must be audited, must present its financial statements. But they will last audited around maybe probably updated around 2021, which is worrying. So those are something which we feel that the local authority needs to address, rather than just to keep on demanding more when they are doing less.
Vakili, let's talk about alternatives. What alternatives could the city of Harare explore, implement, instead of kwidza rates continuously? Or maybe, what else can they turn to as an alternative for some of the problems that the city of Harare is clearly facing when it comes to, the basic needs, the service delivery, the water issues that we've been talking about?
Thank you so much. So when you look at the local authority, I think it came up with what they call the business units. That's the first thing which I just wanted to mention. So the business units for the local authority, let me highlight two. There is Rufaro Marketing and the Quarries. But again, we realize that they live in City Park. So when you look at those business units, they must be able then to generate revenue for the local authority. But again, at some point in time, these business units have not been performing. So I think what is important is for the local authority to strengthen these business units so that they can be able to produce the much needed revenue. That's number one. As an alternative, that's the first alternative. But also going forward, when you look at rates and water, of course, there's no justification of increasing water tariff, because when you look in the region, if you go to Joburg, the same 1,000 liters which the local authority intends to sell for $2 is $1.24. Even if you go to Masvingo, even if you go to Mlawa, even if you go to Mburu, the charges ranges between $15 to $20. So it's expensive. So the local authority cannot charge that much, because even Zinwa charges less than what the local authority intends to charge. So the alternative there, I would propose that the local authority needs to review downwards. But also, the solution, I think when we look at water, our water problem stems out from environmental issues. We are destroying wetlands. Wetlands purify water for free. So, like last time I talked about what we might say nature-based solutions. We say we need to protect these wetlands so that they can be able to provide and purify water to the local authority for free. This then reduce the amount of water treatment chemicals and even reduce the water purification bill or the water purification cost, which is hovering around 3 million per month. So the local authorities need to look at that. And when you look at some of the pollutants, they are emanating from the non-functional sewer circulation, Cobra and failed treatment plants, where the sewer is just being, discharged into the into Manyama River and then find its way into Lake Chivanhu. So those are some of the areas which the local authority we feel it needs to address, entering into a public-private partnership with companies, especially issues that the wastewater is treated and then discharged, so that at the end of the day it can then reduce cost. And then the other issues is that I think there is that need to close, because when you look at local authority, it's hemorrhaging. It loses revenue, especially around I would say leases. So the local authorities, if you go to all packets, all those shops under the package in the local authority area, they belong to the city of Harare. So we need leases that are also, make sense. Leases that make sense, and also ensuring that they also are fair to those who are also renting. But when you look at some of I'll go for beer halls, for example. Someone is renting a beer hall and probably about 1,000 to 2,000 to the local authority, and then the person then sublet and then get around 5,000 a month. So there is something wrong there. So the local authority needs to then revisit some of its leases, because that's where some of their resources are being lost. The local authority is bleeding in terms of my leases. So they really need to look at their leases. And as remember, I talked about the business units. Your farm marketing, I talked about farm marketing on leases. But when you look at the Harare it also is alleged reports that the local authority even owes Harare, which doesn't make sense because the local authority was supposed to be, the Harare was supposed to be remitting to the local authority. So I think these are some of the things which the local authority can then be able to do. And I think we also saw the local authority, there was the business of the farms where they keep cattle. But we realized that Mombe Zacho, so Murkona, how the local authority is losing some of its revenue. And that's the thing which we had proposed even as residents to say, Moma ranks, they need to reclaim some of their ranks because Mamani Garu Mokwevan, Bastu Toramari, your local authority, Iripo, So many Jimbons like a wonder even I think out last week I got to report it. To make a marry $1,000 of
space barons, I think is what they're called now, yeah. But it is definitely an issue.
Yes, and then this is the man which is supposed to go to the local authority. So this local authority and then they need to ensure that their billing system is functional. I think Wakadaru, at some point in time, we could see some movement. And then also, again, as CRA, we have always encouraged my residents, if you receive any services from the local authority, please, may we pay for those services. That also helps.
Thank you so much for outlining some of those alternatives. And also maybe just to move into aside from the tariff and and tax aspects, what sectors do you believe need the most urgent financial attention in the 2026 budget for City of Harare?
Thank you so much. I think the huge sector which needs more money, it's the wastewater. Let me drill down to the wastewater. So the wastewater, China, Ivan, ye, by my pipe, you cannot sewage. So no kun go tanga noti ko tikagadzai koko. Muchaona kuti mvura yedu even isinoreduce my cost kuchi water treatment. So wastewater, which is around sanitation. So this is the priority. But also, Rumbi, let me highlight something. Ndaona ma fines even vanenge vachidischarge vasina mapermits and whatever kuCity of Harare hapana kana an increase vari vanofanira kunge vachibhadhira ma630 fine here. Imagine kuti company inenge yadischarge isinga comply kumalaws inonzibhadhira 600, and it's not a deterrent to stop vanhu kuti vaite se vasapollute kana kuti vasadischarge masewer system vasina pre-treatment facilities. So in our view, that's another area which the local authority needs to look at. Nekuring fence, Maria vanotora kuma fines. Kuti idzokere kunogadzirisa, especially ma fines kana city environment. Maria vanenge vatora iko ngaidzokere kunogadzirisa nyaya dzinochekuita nesiwa, nyaya dzinochekuita nepollution. I think zvinotibatsira izvozvo because no problem atinayo Rumbi ndeyekuti mari iyi haisi ring fence. Imari yekuti inongonopinda mupoto yotanga kukwachurwa, vamwe vamakwachura ichipisa, vamwe vakwachura ichipisa, vamwe vakwachura. Saka hazvizinyadzira sei? But also, as you said, with the key priorities, wastewater, water provision, I think these are the critical. And I think having an experience, and especially in Mambare hostels, I think there is an itch to address nyaya yekugadzirisa mapipe esiwa ndo nyaya yekuti anofanira kunge achienlargewa. So around water and sanitation, I think to us it's a priority which needs attention. So when we say water and sanitation, tungotaura nyaya refuse collection, tungotaura nyaya yemvura yekumwa, tungotaura nyaya yekugezera kwevanhu kumahostel ekumbare, tungotaura nyaya yesewage. I think nyaya idzodzo ndo nyaya dzekuti kanzuru ikanyatsopabata ipapa panogona kuti fambira zvakanaka pamberi apo. Kozoita zvimwe zvinhu zvakafanana nekungogadzirisawo matraffic lights mutaundi. Munochaona kuti matraffic lights mashomanene ari kushanda muguta, saka munochiita congestion and other things. Nekuzongogadzirisawo tingati nyaya yemapotholes because nyaya isizinaitakuenda uyezve next year nyaya yekuvharawo mapotholes nemari dzavanowana kuti pangidzo dzedzo. I think zvinhu zvakakosha zvokuti zvinokwanisa kutibatsira kuti tiite go forward. Chimwe dambudziko randaona Rumbi tichitarisa zvakare nyaya yema-devolution funds. Local authority inofanira kunge ichipiwa mari mukaverenga constitution yedu section 301 subsection 3 inotaura kuti ma-local authorities anofanira kuti mari dzinonzi ma-intergovernmental fiscal transfers mazuvana ya-devolution funds. Saka mari iyoyo inobatsira kuita ma-capital projects. Mukacherechedza kuti makore akura 2-3 mari iyoyo yaramba ichidzikira. Saka ndo chimwe chinhu chekuti tinenge tichikurudzirawo hurumende kuti iteedzere bumbiro remutemo ichiwana kuti apa ma-local authorities asingori kanzuri kuti ari Harare chete but ma-local authorities nyika yese mari yayo yakanyorwa muconstitution. Izvo zvinobatsira zvakare kuti vakwanise kuva vachitipa maservice mabasa avanofanira kuva vachiita. But nyaya yandataura iyo yakanyaya yakakosha, water sanitation and hygiene, I think it remains one of the key priorities for the city.
And as we bring the conversation to a close, I'm happy that you've highlighted, in terms of the Urban Councils Act, Section 219 EU, there is time if any ratepayer, and that's important. So you have to actually be a ratepayer. Can only in arrears. You actually are not eligible, isn't it? Isn't that what that means? So it's also important to continue to be a ratepayer.
Provision, a registered voter. So it's interesting.
A registered voter, it gets even deeper.
So I don't know, but when you look at, I think it's 290 subsection 3 or subsection 2, it speaks to say, so you then specify, because one of the registered voters on Mbuya, no, I'm not payer, but I think it's something also which is so important. Manonza is registered voters on Mbuya, because no provision, but again, mukana uripo.
So I want to tender. Thank you so much for highlighting and clarifying that. Then, as we're ending the conversation, message is to City Council, to Harare City Council, before finalization of the 2026 budget. Ingava yekutichi.
I think chikumbiro chedu ku Council rekutare Harare ndechekuti ngati koshesei pfungwa dzevanhu kana vachiuya kunyanya munyaya dzekurongwa kwebudget. So I think zvakakosha izvozvo going forward, nekuti ikonzero chekuti vakaramba vachiita tingati umbimbi-ndoga ihwohwo, muchaona kuti gore rinotera vanhu havauye kumameeting ebudget, zvinoita kuti vanhu valose trust mulocal authority. Saka maitiro ekuita kunge vanhu vari kuita kunge zviwande-wande, because pane zvinhu zvakafanana ne750 million iri kutaurwa nezvayo ye-West Water whatever, hazvinyatsori clear kuti zvakamira sei. Saka pakaita kunge pane chiwande-wande vanhu vanoluza trust mulocal authority. Saka ngapaitwe kuti local authority ngaibude pachena pane zvese zvainenge ichiita. Zvinobatsira izvozvo kuti tienda mberi, uyezve nekurespecta pfungwa dzevanhu, also nekuve accountable kuvanhu, ngavapesana ngudzo dzakakwana maringe nemashandiro, mapindiro nemabudiro ari kuita mari. Izvozvo zvinobatsira kuti vanhu vave neconfidence nema-operations e-local authority tichienda mberi. Zvakare pabudget irori itarisiro yedu yekuti vanofanira kurisiwa most of the charges dzavanga vaita kungodzimikira manhamba kuti dzive dzinomeka sense, uyezve tinechitarisira kuti also mumwe macho mavange vachislash aiwa ngavaslashe vachiita macharges anenge ane musoro, because zvimwe zvacho zvinopedzera zvakuita kunge zvedambe. Hatifanira kuita kunge tikuita kunge zvinhu zvekupreschool, ngatitei zvinhu zvekuratidza kuti tirakuumba guta.
Vakili Ntoda Kutenda, I think it's a good place for us to leave our conversation and just to encourage residents that if you have an objection against my proposals, the budget in itself, the proposed tariffs ada kuincrease property tax, water charges, vachada kupisa vachashaika cremation, burial charges, kukollectwa marara, rental, low high density, administrative fees for housing, public health fees, license and registration certificate fees, traffic, ambulance, market fees, hire of stadia and halls fees, swimming pool charges, and other related charges. Please, 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 you can put your objections in writing, Anditi, and then submit that at Town House. And this is open up until the 1st of December 2025. Any registered voter, any registered voter who has an objection to the tariffs and to the budget must put the objections in writing to the town clerk on or before close of business 1 December 2025. I certainly hope, Vakili, that we are able to make traction and that we can, get this city back on I think on the right track, and that we start to heal our environment and start to enjoy, I think, a few more benefits coming out of our city. Thank you so much, Mr. Akili. We certainly will be speaking to you throughout this budget process. Tichizoona kuti rinozo approve a budget racho rakamira say, and how many people have actually put any objections forward.
Thank you so much. We will update you. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Have a good evening. Thank you so much. That's combined residence of Harare Association Director, Mr. Ruben Akili, our guest on the exchange. Thank you so much, sir. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Now, the news is up next at exactly 8 o'clock. Ndichingokurudzirai kuti aiwa dai tambotora nguva yekuverenga kuti zvinotiafecta sei zvinai. And it's as just reflecting from that conversation kuti zvimwe zvinhu zvacho zvakanzi zvoda kutaurwa, zvoda kuchinjwa, zvoda kuiswa imomo hazvisi kuonekera mubudget nai. But the good news is that this has not yet been passed. It's still a proposal. It's still pending and is open for public deposit for your objections, for your views in writing ndapota zvangu. And vaya vanoungana voita makawanda hanzi 30 objections are enough to get yourself audience. So please try and file your objections as individuals. That takes our time to exactly 8 o'clock. It's time for the news.
The Exchange on Deep Dive.